What's up, friendly neighborhood nerds? This is Judah Rad. I'm here with Robo Strange. So I'm at a bit of a loss. As you know, I've been kind of just nonstop raving Matt Kindt comics for a while now. Well,
True.
today he is on the show, and honestly, have no idea. I have no idea what to do. We're trying to keep these interviews under 30 minutes, and I could spend the whole day just talking about mind management. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do our best. We're not going to get to everything we want to talk about today, but we're definitely going to dig deep into the new stuff, specifically Berserker and ENIAC. Matt Kindt, well, I freaking love comics. Before we get started, how's life?
Pretty good, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us. So right out the gate, ENIAC, totally awesome. When I was reading it, I've ended up going down a Google spiral with the 1945 ENIAC project. It was cool to see how you took like actual history and turned it into this, what I would describe as a techno horror, psychological thriller, espionage action thing.
Maybe that's why it was so hard to write.
So how did this idea come about? Where'd you get started on this idea?
No, it was probably the same hole you went down is probably the one I went down. And that's I read a lot of like history and nonfiction because all those ideas are free. You can take those.
Nice.
But no, I did. I must have been researching some other World War II thing, usually with spies or something, and I stumbled across that, and I just put it in a notebook. I was like, oh, ENIAC, blah blah blah. That would be cool to do, like the first AI, and it got its seeds during World War II, and then and it just sat in my notebook for a long time until Bad Idea came around, and then I had a meeting with the guys, and I was like, hey, here's like 30 or 40 ideas I got. I haven't really like fully developed. And so I was like, you pick what sounds interesting. I don't know, like, and then, so letting them sort of like cherry pick some of the ideas I gave them, that was one that they liked. And I was like, oh, okay. And then, whatever, just try to blow it up into something good.
That's dope. So Keanu Reeves. So we love Keanu Reeves. I'm pretty sure most people on the planet by now love Keanu Reeves.
Well, he's like the best guy ever. So
right.
Yeah.
But to be completely honest, when I and many others saw that, I didn't really know how to feel about it. Like, what is this a gimmick? Is this gonna be a story for some movie coming out? Like talking about Berserker, obviously. And then we saw your name on it, and so we're like, okay, all right, this is gonna be great. We're on board. How did you feel when you got pitched that?
Yeah, same way. Everything you just said is exactly how I felt. I was the editor called me at Boom, and he's like, hey, we got a new project. It's Keanu Reeves, and it's like a Eternal Warrior kind of Berserker, whatever. He actually pitched it. He was like, it's and it wasn't called Berserker then. He's like, it's got an idea for a story, and it's about this character who can't die, and it's all,
the immortal fighter.
Yeah. And I was like, well, that sounds like Eternal Warrior. Like, but I was like, so I was skeptical. And then he's like, well, just come out and have the meeting or whatever, and then let him pitch it, because he had more of a pitch to it. And I was like, well, I'll do that, because then at least I can tell my daughter, it's like, hey, whatever, guess where I'm going. So anyway, I went out there, had the meeting, and then he gave me the pitch, and then he gave me a more full pitch, which there was more to it. And it was less about like a warrior and different periods of time in famous battles. And it was more about like a character and like these bigger ideas about like where he came from and why he is, and like some of the secret origin stuff we haven't got to. And I was like, oh, that's not at all what I thought it was going to be, and not at all where I thought it was going to go. And then and so we had like an epic meeting that first day, and then went back to the hotel. I wrote a bunch of ideas down, went back the next day, and then we just spitballed like a ton of stuff, and I structured it out, the story, and had a bunch more ideas. And I was like, well, this has to be, there was no form to it yet either. And I was like, when I came back, I was like, this has to be 12 issues. Like there's no way there's so much we can do. There's so much good stuff. And even then it's going to be tight. And it is, there's not enough room to do it all. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so I was skeptical, and I was like, I don't want to do, you know what I mean? I've been doing comics my whole life, so I'm kind of protective of it as a medium. I don't want
Right.
people coming in from outside or other mediums and just using comics for, you know, to get a movie made or do whatever, you know. And so I'm very skeptical of that, and I'm very protective of the medium because this is what I chose to do with my life,
Hmm.
and so I'm going to protect it. And so I there's no way I would have done it if I thought it was going to be something that it's like, oh, we're just doing this for the movie or to get something
Right.
made. And it's like he was totally invested, and then and I was like, we're just going to make the craziest, best comic ever. And there was never any talk of movie, anything. Like none of that stuff ever had any impact on what we were doing. It was all about story and character. And we've spent hours. I can truly say I've spent more time working on this than anything else I've ever written. So,
Nice.
and
Nice.
and a lot of it's just because of the collaboration and like figuring out the character and just spending so much time with it. It's been like a great sort of different writing experience for me.
Now you
Yeah.
mentioned that he was invested. One of the things that kind of reminds me, one of the things that was a little bit what's the word? I guess contentious was the decision to go to Kickstarter with somebody like Keanu Reeves on board. What is were you a part of that discussion? What was the final call to go towards the Kickstarter?
Yeah, the thing is, like in the bigger context, it was they had a whole thing ready to go, like a big rollout for it, and it was going to be, you know, conventions, and we go to San Diego and make a big announcement, and then just do it, promote it like we would do, you know. And then the pandemic happened, and every convention got canceled. But we
Mm.
have art ready to go. We have Rahan needed, you know what I mean? We don't want to cancel the book or delay it a year, you know, because everybody sort of like scheduled. It's like, well, we got to make, you know, Ron's got to make a living. We have this ready to go.
That's
So
right.
what do we do? And so it really was just like it was their idea to do a Kickstarter, and then they asked me about it, and I was like, well, I was like, if you do it, you have to do it. You have to be careful because it's like the way people view Kickstarter, people view it differently, you know. And it's like
Mhm.
it's a lot of people view it as like this. It's a way to get projects done that can't get done any other way. You don't have
right.
the money, and you're trying to get funded, which is true. That's what it's for. But it's also like I'm a huge fan of board games. Like I'm a big board. I just started getting into board games the last couple of
Mhm.
years, and it's super common for board games to like publish board game publishers. They will launch like a super special edition version of the board game on Kickstarter
Mm.
to get like that influx of money to make this special game, and then the retail game comes out later, you know. And I love it because like the games come with little metal coins and all this. I'm a huge
Sure.
nerd when it comes
Yeah.
to games. So it's
We
like,
can
so
relate.
there's that aspect of it too. And I think that was like, you just got to be careful just that you don't cut out retailers, and you don't do something where it looks like a money grab, because it wasn't about a money grab. It was about, hey, how do we, in a year where there's no conventions, there's no way to like promote a comic traditionally how we normally do, like, well,
Mhm.
how do you do it, you know? And I was like, well, it was a way to do it. But
Right on.
That makes sense. There definitely was some back and forth, which I'm sure you've heard. And as far as like, okay, so you got a major studio, you got a major, you know, movie star, and but actually, you know, when you said about the pandemic, I don't know why that wasn't already an obvious kind of, yeah, that makes sense. How else do you get this out there and get that the initial piece going?
yeah,
That makes
you know what
sense.
else? The other aspect of that too, which is what Boom already they told me. I was like, because I was skeptical of that as well. I was like, I don't know. I think it's going to be in and what I found out to be the truth is what they were thinking is that we pull in a whole new audience. You know, we're going to get people reading a monthly comic that don't go into the comic shop. You know, they
Yeah.
don't have you know, they're buying it because it's Keanu Reeves' name on the cover, right? Like, let's
Right.
be honest, like we're getting a ton of new readers that they're like, oh, they're fans of his, and they're going to pick up this book that have never picked up a comic before, or maybe they stopped reading when they were a kid and they're getting this and they're getting into comic. But I felt like it was a way to reach an audience the outside of like people that go to the comic shop every month, you know. And if it's not in the Barnes and Noble graphic novel section, they're never going to see it. um, and I felt like it was good, ultimately ended up being good for comics. I think we got a lot of
100%.
people at least hooked on one comic, hopefully
Definitely.
more, you know.
definitely.
Yeah,
And it's a good starting point for someone who's never read a comic book before. It's just action packed and awesome. So
yeah,
definitely.
that's definitely one of the things that I wasn't even gonna bring it up until it just kind of popped into my head, and that's how I do. But because at that point you're wondering how is this gonna be, like what's gonna happen with it. Yep, it's Matt Kindt, got it. But you know, we've seen other things where the writer that we trust gets steamrolled by you know execs, and so what's gonna happen with this? But by now we've seen a few of the issues and we know what's out there, and we've seen the increase in the viewership. So that's pretty awesome. This next question I had is, I'm just going to read it, regarding Berserker from Boom Studios. Longtime Valiant fans will definitely notice some striking echoes of the Eternal Warrior within the story. You already did that. You already said that, but I will continue with the rest of the question, which is, this story feels like it should be a part of the Valiant universe. How much of the storytelling is influenced by your time at Valiant, and also follow up to that is, how much did Keanu Reeves put into the story? How much of this was his idea?
Yeah, I'd say like it's probably 80% his idea, and it's probably like 80% my way of telling it. Like
Okay.
that's like, well, here's the idea, and I was like, well, here's how we can tell it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think my initial idea going in, like if I'd always wanted to do Eternal Warrior at Valiant, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what I would do. So when I came into this project, I had sort of a preconceived notion of like how we would do it, and it was going to be more of a I had pictured like every issue in a different era, and he's doing something different and it's just like all through time and everything, and that is not at all what he ended up pitching and what he was interested in. I was like, oh, it's totally different than what my Eternal Warrior would have been, you know. And I like it because this is a little bit more of a challenge. Like it's not we're not doing the easy thing of like, here he is in Viking times, here he is in the Revolutionary War. We're doing something a little different. We're gonna get to see glimpses of that, and I get to, but it's definitely it was a like, other than the initial idea, like the collaboration has been really like even handed. Like I feel like I was worried too. I was like, well, who am I? Well, I'm not gonna be able to like dictate anything. And it's, which is true. I'm not able to, but then he's not either. It's like the true collaboration is where we spit out all the ideas and pick the best one. And that's kind of how it's been, you know?
Nice. So I kind of want, I'm not a big board game player, and I mean, yeah, it's just not my thing. Maybe I'd love it. I just haven't gotten into it yet. But it is, I did think it was interesting. Like if I was going to start, I would definitely want to start with a mind management board game, which sounds pretty cool. So how did you get from mind management to mind management board game? And
yeah, what's funny is like my brother for years has been trying to get me to play board games. I go over to his house, and then I want to play on his Xbox because I didn't have a game machine or anything. So I was like, let's play video games. He's like, no, I want to play board games first. So he would make me play like Catan and these other games, these like Euro games with all these rules and everything. And so I would sit through those because he wanted to play just so I could get to video games. and then it just wasn't really my thing. I did it because he was making me. But then a couple of years ago, I went to Gen Con, which is the big game convention, and I was tagging along with my friend Brian Hurt, and he was there they were working on an RPG for Six Gun, and so I was just tagging along. I'm like, hey, it'll be a fun road trip, and I don't care about games. And I walked into this convention center, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's thousands of board games. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, who are these people who's playing these games, and like, why are there so many board games? I just had no idea. And I felt like at a convention, how many times have I sat there where you have like the guy come up to the table and he had to drag along his girlfriend or his wife, and they're like, they have no idea they've never seen anything like it, you know? So I felt like I was like the girlfriend getting drug along. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this?
You've been missing your whole life.
Yeah. But I was like, oh, and so I bought like this big Cthulhu game, and just because the characters look cool in it and everything. And then we were there for the whole weekend. So I went back the next day and I was like, I bought a couple more games. And then we play games. Everybody's in the hotel lobby playing games in the after the show. I was like, this is fun. This is like it's like a comic book convention, but I
Yeah.
can be like a fan of it. And
Yeah.
instead of everybody buying their comics and going back to their room and reading them, everybody goes to the lobby and like has like this party where they play games.
That sounds awesome.
So
Yeah, it
how
was
many
so fun.
How many versions of Settlers of Catan do you have now?
Of what?
Settlers of
Oh,
Catan.
I don't even own it. I don't own it.
Okay.
Too old. It's all about the new games.
Have you ever walked into an LCS though? Like back in the non-gaming times, like I've had this experience where mad respect for tabletop gamers, but I walk into an LCS and there's like a game happening in the middle of the room, and I feel like I just like interrupted something. I
Yeah,
I have to be really quiet and like go look at my books over here.
yeah. No, I don't want to. Yeah, it's different when you're at Gen Con and you're playing in the lobby. Everybody's doing it, but I would feel weird if I was just the only person in the middle of the shop. But no, it's cool. Well, that's how. So the long story is that, like, Brian, and who's I share a studio with, we went into the comic shop to buy like a game. It's like, hey, let's play a board game. So we went in to buy one, and we bought this one called Akrotiri, which is just a 2-player game. There's just 2 of us. So it's like, oh, 2-player game, and Akrotiri looks cool. It's got islands and it was like one of our favorite games for a long time. We played it forever, and then when I tagged along at that convention with him, he introduced me to Jay and Sen, and Jay, who were working with them on I think they were talking about maybe doing an RPG or something. And then Jay was a huge fan of mind management. I was like, what? You know comics? it was like cool to be whatever, recognized and everything. And then he knew the books. And I was like, oh my God, you designed this Akrotiri game, which is like one of the first games we bought, and we love it. And then I was like, we should do a game. And then like 4 years later, finally did the game. It's so much, board games is so much work, like the designing of how it works, and then I did all the stuff. Yeah, the visuals and the design I did, and that was a lot of work too. But just like making the mechanics of the game work was eye-opening. It's an art form.
That's pretty cool. So this is kind of a weird question, so I'm going to prepare you. So looking at your like body of work, I've sort of kind of noticed like a common thread. So like going from mind management to Unity to Divinity, and now like ENIAC and Berserker, the common thread is that there seems to be like secret government shit that's impacted human history. And it seems like you really like to kind of mess around with historical events in a way that implies that everything we know is a lie, or that the world is not as it seems. Is this would you say this is what you set out to accomplish when you first started writing comics?
No.
No.
Here's the thing. In high school, I was obsessed with the JFK assassination, and I blame my history teacher who was obsessed with it. And like we would do all of American history, and then we would get to the JF Kennedy stuff, and then he would spend like weeks on it. And I was like, oh my God, all these things, and the grassy knoll and Oswald, and so like from an early age, I was like, oh man, like what really happened? And I did a deep dive before internet, which is like reading books.
What are those?
Yeah, and so I was like always obsessed with that, and I guess I'm always obsessed with like what really happened. It's like, like, and the idea that we'll never know, and so out of that sort of grew my idea of like what heaven would be, right? Like if in heaven, if you go to heaven, it's like it should be everything you ever wanted. And what I want most is to know exactly what happened everywhere all the time in all of history. And there's the library in mind management, which is like this huge library that the monks recorded all of history, and you pull a book off the shelf and you could see objective everything that happened, And I was like, well, that was really just me describing like what I imagine heaven would be like.
Oh.
And so I think it's more about that. It's less about like governments are evil, or there's these conspiracies, or nothing we know is real. And it's more about just like I want to know, like if 3 people witness an event, you're going to get 3 different versions of the event. So like I love the idea of just knowing what the event was, like the Rashomon effect, but like but we just eliminate it. So you would have whatever. It's like all of history's mysteries solved.
So you'd say you're not really afraid of a secret organization manipulating politics on a global scale.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I
Okay.
think here's what I think, and it's changed over time. When I was younger, I totally believed that. As I got older, I'm like, man, people are too dumb and unorganized to actually
That's our
manipulate events like that, you know. And if they were, we'd be in worse shape.
That's right.
Do you feel like things like I guess I'll just say it, like things like QAnon have kind of ruined the fun of conspiracy theorizing?
It totally has, man. You should see the fan mail I get from Mind Management. Some of it is so crazy that I'm like, I feel kind of bad. I was like, no, this isn't what this is. You know, it's really,
Well,
to me, Mind Management it's all that stuff. That's like the fun window dressing, but it's really about like accountability and regret and like you know, those bigger things. It's not about like crazy government stuff.
But if you did know and you were a part of that and you were trying to communicate with us, that's what you would say. So we get
blink
it.
Twice if
Oh my gosh, I do. I swear I get so much mail and messages, people hiding little secret messages and things and codes and it's like, I was like, stop, you're making me paranoid. Like,
right.
I feel kind of bad about it.
Yeah. All right. So I want to touch on Valiant real quick before we go. So the Valiant, that era. So between yourself, Dice Art, friend of the show, Venditti, Lemire, Jordan, long list of people. A lot of cool stuff came out of that.
A lot of bad ideas.
A lot of bad ideas.
Do you think you'll ever find yourself back that way? And if so, what title would you want to pick up? Besides Eternal Warrior.
Yeah, you know, Eternal Warrior I would do, and then I almost did Shadow Man. I would like to. I had a whole thing planned for Rye. Like when the thing fell, I had a whole bunch of stuff planned for that, but yeah, I can't say I never would. But I like the way my career goes. I tended to work with people I like working with, you know, or like friends, you know. And I made Warren and Dinesh became really good friends, and so it's not so much about like the characters to me. It's about like the fun of working together and collaborating. It's like I'm not doing the Keanu thing anymore because it's just fun to work together. So
right.
I'm doing that. It's the same with Warren and Dinesh. It's like I like working with those guys, you know, and so I'll keep doing that as long as it's fun. And
but Bad Idea's over, so.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Bad Idea's
yeah, over. I meant after Bad Ideas.
Anyway, we had a good run. It was fun.
Yeah. So speaking of Bad Idea being over, is it Refuse or Refuse?
Yeah, good. That's what my Warren was like, are you sure you want this title? What about this other title? I was like, no, there's a double meaning there.
Got it.
Because
got it.
She anyway, it's a double meaning.
Okay, so you say either way you'll be right. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything you are allowed to tell us about that book?
Yeah, I guess I don't know what's a secret. Marguerite's art is amazing. She's been posting some of the color stuff too, and it's cool to see the line art and then what she does with the colors. It's like I don't know, it's just cool to see her process. But awesome. No, I wrote it knowing she was going to be doing it. I wrote it for her, really. I had like 2 or 3 ideas, and then we showed them to her, and she's like she didn't want to do and I was totally on board with it. She didn't want to do something that had like a bunch of like violence or action, like in a conventional sense. And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I want to write something that doesn't have any fights, and there's action, but not in a conventional way. It's more of like it's just like a kind of a quiet story with some survival and like a backstory with this mysterious character who she can't really remember. She wakes up, she crash lands on this planet, wakes up, doesn't know who she is or where she is or why she's there. Sort of has to try to figure it out. And anyway, it was just super fun to write a story like that and the challenge of making something where there's you just rely on fights in comics. It's like, where's the It's easy and fun.
That's
And
right.
so it was kind of fun to come up with a story that met her criteria. And it ended up being awesome. It's one of my favorite things.
There's
Awesome.
so much talent at Bad Idea right now. It's unbelievable. It's unfathomable how many outstanding creators are working for one publisher.
Yeah, I know,
really
it's great.
awesome.
That's why the other part of the collaborating is like they have access to the best artists. So it's like
Doug,
if you can
Doug
give me,
Braithwaite, like
yeah, Doug and Margarita. It's like I would love a chance to work with her. So it was great to have that opportunity.
it's
That's
awesome.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, ladies, gentlemen, and envies, that is our show. Thank you, Mr. Matt Kindt, for giving us some of your time and talking about this stuff. Any last words?
I don't have any. There's never a last word.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to wash your hands, and I guess if applicable, keep wearing your mask because it looks out.
Get the vaccine.
Just yeah, get vaccinated.
Yep.
And watch the news. All right, we are out of here.
What's up, friendly neighborhood nerds? If you want to hear interviews from industry pros, get first looks, and have access to endless comic content, wake up. Please wake up. You're in a coma. Your mother misses you.